All right, everybody. Well, welcome back to the Steel City Blitz Steelers Podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. And I want to thank both Ben and Chris for taking a moment to do the show tonight. You know, they got to work out. They got to go to dinner. They got to watch the finale of Love Island or whatever the hell it is. So, you know, it's one of those busy times of year, as it is for many people. And anyway, lots to talk about with the Steelers, and we kind of, well, not we, I kind of purposefully delayed on doing the show this week, and the reason for that is simply because there wasn't a lot to talk about with the two practices that had to be canceled, and rightfully so with the passing of wide receivers coach Darryl Drake. A very sudden thing, and you know, again, we'll get into much more of this, but there wasn't a ton of stuff to discuss in terms of football, and it just really didn't make a lot of sense for us to have a show. So here we are, and we'll certainly talk about that, and also the game coming up this weekend, preseason week 2, at home Saturday night against the Chiefs. Chris, how you doing tonight out there?
That's pretty. It's 109 today, so it's a hot one out there.
Oh, 109. Boy, that's hot. It was about 75 here today, and that's not hot. I'll take it. And Ben, how are things out there in the Pacific Northwest?
Good.
Everything's
nothing to
good
complain
out there.
about. Everything's hunky-dory.
Hunky-dory, a term not used nearly enough, quite frankly. So, guys, let's get into this, and obviously there's very little good about it. Darryl Drake is a longtime assistant coach in the college ranks and in the NFL, and he had been with the Steelers for a little more than a season. He came on last year after the great Richard Mann retired. And really, I mean, continued what Coach Mann had done. The receiving core was excellent again last year. And, you know, quite often when these types of things happen, you find out a lot about people that maybe you didn't already know. And, you know, so I'll just kind of go into it with that in mind here, because a lot of people were learning about Coach Drake. And, you know, I think the important thing is these coaches are so much more than just guys that teach and yell and scream at these players. There's a lot more going on there. Chris, what was your initial reaction? And I mean, have you had to deal with something like this with a coach or somebody like that, you know, passing away during a season?
My initial reaction, my jaw just dropped. You know, in disbelief. I didn't really understand what was going on, and just in awe. I mean, like the entire day, my stomach was kind of just seeing all the players upset, and it just, it sobers you up. So, you know, I've dealt with something like that. My calculus and multimedia teacher died like in my lap my senior year of high school. He just like collapsed, and I was trying to help him, and he ended up passing away. So, you know, having to replace him all year, it was tough. And you know, ever since, it still hurts. Still miss him, but it's all about moving forward. It's all about doing things, you know, for them, and just moving forward.
Yeah, for sure, man. What an unbelievably bad experience. Jeez. Ben, your initial reactions, and like Chris, have you had to deal with something like this?
No, not really. I mean, I've had family members die, but that's
sure.
You know, that's an entirely different thing altogether. But no, not a coach, not a mentor. The thing that seems to be impacting the Steelers is that Drake's reach went beyond the wide receiver room, in particular with Ben Roethlisberger, who he'd been encouraging to be, I'm trying to look for a better word than passive-aggressive. He'd been encouraging Ben not to be passive-aggressive, but to be direct.
Direct, yeah.
And speak openly in the locker room and on the field when he was criticizing players. And, you know, it may have very well contributed to the drama with AB last year, because it was something that Drake was encouraging Ben to do. And Ben has, as I understand it, he has evolved, and he's been what people are terming a better leader as a result. So, everybody was impacted by this death. That's all I'm saying. The from the O-line to the wide receivers to the guys in the defense, the guy who seems to be talking about it the most openly and almost immediately was Alejandro Villanueva, and that kind of makes sense. If he did a couple of combat tours, and he's seen people die and knew them, I'm sure, and so he's kind of come to terms with how to process death and not take it as hard, maybe, or not internalize it. I don't know, but deal with it differently. How to process it differently than the guys that were taken by surprise, and everyone was. I mean, the guy went to sleep and didn't wake up. I mean, how do you prepare yourself for that? And then the other thing, the thing to really take from this is take care of your health. Take care of your health. I've been talking to my parents about this for I don't know how many years. And my mom just doesn't. And, we have longevity in my family, and I think she just kind of thought she could get away with it. And, she's suddenly getting old. And it's like, well, if you had done more for yourself over these years, you wouldn't have had to worry about this. So just don't take it for granted. That's all. You can go at any point. Tell the people that matter to you that they matter, and do the things you want to do, you want to get done. Don't put them off, and take care of your health, man, because you can go at any point.
Yeah, you can, and I, lot of emotion for me too, and seeing this, and one thing I always try to do is I try to rather than just throw out a knee-jerk reaction, which I'm guilty of plenty, but I try to put myself in the position of Mike Tomlin. I try to put myself in the position of the players, and what that must be like to go to sleep and know that your next day you got meetings, you got practice, you got all that stuff, and all of a sudden the whole thing is just completely discombobulated. And not only is your routine, and of course NFL players are so routine oriented, not only is that thrown off, but you're also dealing with the fact that you've lost somebody, and it is very obvious, as you alluded to, the fact that he had a reach much greater than just the wide receiver room. Big Al, was one guy doing a lot of talking, but I heard some comments from other guys too, the secondary guys. I heard one or two of the defensive linemen talking about how important this guy had become. And I think too, and it's probably cliche, but we know a lot of these guys come from unfortunate circumstances. They don't always have fathers around. And this guy, I think, in many ways was a father figure to a lot of these guys in one way or another. And so it's not just losing the coach. You're losing a mentor. You're losing somebody like that too. And, so I'm not going to get into the speculation game here of anything more than, we just wish him well. I'm not going to start getting into what happened or anything of that stuff. That's not for us to do. As far as, the moving forward part, I think Mike Tomlin is definitely, doing that. The unfortunate reality is this is life. The NFL is a business, and business has to go on. And, there are a couple of options that they seem to have as far as somebody to come in and take over the wide receiver coach's job. But when that happens, it'll happen, and we're not going to worry too much more about it. Chris, did you get a chance to see some of the photos and videos of practice the last couple of days?
Just photos here and there. I've been just so busy, and I just read who I trust and who is there, right, in terms of what's going on. But nothing out of the ordinary right now.
Yeah, it was just, Ben, I know you saw some of those photos of Ben Roethlisberger kind of consoling Juju, and you saw Ryan Switzer coming off the field. And he seems to me, of all the guys, to be the one most affected by this. And I don't know that for sure. I'm just going based on what I've seen and heard. But it's been one of those things, and I hate to say this, but I think people will understand what I'm saying. The positive of this is that fans get a chance to see that these guys are not just these gladiators that go out, kill themselves every Sunday, and that's all they do. They're actually people. They're people.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to remember that. So Ben, I assume you saw some of that footage.
Yeah, I based upon what I've seen and heard, and it isn't that much. It's not like anybody really wants to talk about this.
Yeah.
When you inquire, but based upon what I've seen and heard, Juju was the player who was most impacted by it, and he still really isn't opening up and isn't processing it all that quickly. We're talking about a player who's very family friendly oriented, and this was somebody who was very important to him, and all of a sudden he's gone. So I agree with the point you just made, though, Mark. It really does illustrate the human side of all of these players. And, it's like Scarpino talks about when he comes on the show sometimes, sometimes players are going to react emotionally to all kinds of different situations and in all kinds of different ways. And we sometimes lose sight of the fact that they're human beings. Right. And this does serve as a reminder to all of us that they are. And, I hope that people take that to heart.
Yeah, I do too. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on, your viewpoints, we do need to move on and start talking about football. And what I mean by that is we now have a game against the Kansas City Chiefs coming up on Saturday. And if this were a regular season situation, I think most of us would be extremely concerned about the outcome of this game. It's a very good team. We know what we'd be seeing, blah, blah, blah. But it is preseason. There's not really any game planning that's going on. You're still evaluating your own players. You're still working on your own offense and defensive schemes and things. So, Chris, what is your expectation going into this game? And I don't mean win or loss, but I mean, do you think you'll see just a typical Steelers team out there, or do you think this will still linger on Saturday night?
I think it's going to be close to the same as last week, but I think, with Rudolph starting, you make sure that he gets with the guys that he's going to need to be to have chemistry with, and also guys who may have earned or lost reps maybe from their play of last game. So someone like Ulysses Gilbert maybe has earned some more reps. Just as an example, maybe them kind of coming up and playing with against better competition. I would like to see that. My expectation in terms of another player is Justin Lane. See how he reacts to having such a rough game last week.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think he's got to bounce back. I think there's other guys that are going to build on. You mentioned Gilbert. Ben, do you see any? Did you see this team being a little bit different on Saturday night? Kind of getting that first game out of the way without their assistant coach there.
Well, one of my buddies who happens to be a teacher, so what the hell does he know?
Exactly, those idiots.
People are jackasses.
Completely.
Yeah. He pointed out to me yesterday or the day before, grief is a powerful motivator, and he's right.
Yeah.
But it can go one way or the other. You can either bring out your best, or you can surrender to anxiety and fall flat in your face. So I don't know what to expect out of this team. They may come out and they may trounce the Chiefs, and we may go, wow, this is a great team. And then Mike Tomlin at the end of the game will go, yeah, we're not actually that good. We just had a lot of motivation tonight.
Right.
Or they may come out and just fall flat and just not be able to get into a groove. I really have no idea how to know how they're gonna react to it. I do feel like the experience, as cliche as it sounds, it's gonna make them stronger. And there's really no way around that. There's really no way to make that sound pretty, because somebody just died.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
The experience of processing this will make them stronger and bring them closer together as a team. And if you're a sports fan, that's great. You like it. You don't like the fact that somebody had to die to make it happen. So it'll be bittersweet. Let's put it that way. But I think the outlook for this team is probably a bit enhanced overall.
Yeah.
I know that Kansas City's got a great offense. I don't have all that much respect for their defense, not yet. We'll see what the season brings. I know they try to do some things to retool it a bit, but they were god awful last season, and until they prove it, they're still god awful as far as I'm concerned.
They've added some pieces, but you got to wait and see if it actually transitions to the field of play.
I mean, if they can keep winning games 45-42, they're gonna have a great record.
Yeah. Well, eventually, it takes a New England to slow them down or something like that, as was the case last year, just barely. You're listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. And again, this week you can still get the Patagonia shirt, which based off the Patagonia, which is so popular with those kids these days. It's a nice looking shirt. And of course, at 26shirts.com, they always give a percentage, $8 of every shirt sold goes to a very worthy cause. So get a great shirt, good looking shirt, comfortable as heck shirt, and do something good at the same time. Chris, you mentioned Justin Lane, so I want you to talk a little bit about why you think maybe he didn't play so well, and then kind of flip it and talk about Devin Bush a little bit, a guy who many people considered had like the best weekend of any rookie in the NFL.
Yeah, we talked about this last podcast, but I'll rehash this. Justin Lane is a press man corner, and he does well getting his hand on the receiver within 5 yards and rerouting and running with. His tendency to read the quarterback off man and then react is not his strong suit, and that's what I don't know who was calling the plays, Butler or Tomlin was asking of Lane to do, and that they were not attributing to his strengths. As far as Devin Bush goes, he's extremely solid. He knows that he has to work on his coverage, and he will. So he should have had a pick six. I know he's hurting about that. So like to see him a little more gluey, if I can use that weird word.
Gluey.
Gluey.
Kind of like the kids in kindergarten on the first day of school. They're all gluey.
Yeah. And then another thing with Devin Bush is not avoiding blockers. Make sure he's shedding and blocking, shedding and tackling, hitting the gaps, just being in the backfield, being a leader, calling out the right plays, doing those sorts of things.
Yeah, and Ben, I know you're not going to say perfect, and we didn't last week after the game was over, and Chris kind of alluded to it with Bush, but what are the next steps for him? Because he's going to read a lot of accolades, he's going to hear a lot of wonderful things, but the kid's got to stay grounded because there's a lot more stuff coming. So what are you looking for from him this weekend?
Bush doesn't seem to be a personality who's affected by accolades and by compliments. He seems to be a guy who remains pretty humble, but most importantly, he's very focused on the task at hand. I would expect him to be working on his coverage a bit. He could have been a little better, and taking advantage of those situations when the ball hits him in the chest, because he was in perfect position there to get the pick six and blew it, and he knew it. And he fully acknowledged it. If he's in that position again, I expect him to at least get his hands on the ball. And, there were a couple of points when he got blocked on run plays where he wasn't perfect. I did not see any missed tackles. So I'd like to see him continue doing that. One of the things that really jumps off at me and when I watch the tape is if he has an opportunity, if he has the time, he comes to a point of balance and makes a form tackle. Unless the guy's running away from him or moving the other way, and he's got to jump at him quickly. In that case, he's going for an ankle tackle or something along those lines, where he's not trying to blow the guy up. He's just trying to make sure he gets him on the ground. And I really like that about him. He's not, at least last week, he wasn't really going for the big hit. He's not trying to make a big splash. He's trying to make sure he stops the ball carrier. Really like that in a linebacker a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to more of that. I mean, we're nitpicking when we talk about his performance last week because it was very, very good. Justin Lane has got to get better. I expect them to try and make him adapt his game to off coverage again. And it makes sense. And people keep saying, well, they should put him in a position where he can play bump, where he can play man. You know what? No, because they're not planning on starting him. So he's not going to get much playing time once the season starts. He'll get some reps, I'm sure, but he's not going to get much playing time. And the time for him to learn is right now while the games don't count. So, let him make some mistakes. It's okay. Let him grow. It's fine. He's a rookie. He's going to screw up. We can live with it. It's not the end of the world. Don't everybody go out and jump off a bridge because the Steelers drafted another bad cornerback, because he's not a bad cornerback. He's very, very talented. They drafted a kid who came from a program that was almost exclusively bump and man coverage, and that was it. And they're trying to make him an off cover corner as well, so that he's got a versatile game. So don't worry about it. Don't sweat it.
No, don't. You're talking about a former receiver, too, that transitioned in college over to corner. As you said, he plays the one style at Michigan State, and then also throw in the fact it's the first preseason game. Nobody is giving Devin Bush his Hall of Fame jacket yet. Nobody should be, putting bust all over. I don't think they are. All over Justin Lane. At least I hope they're not. I mean, I sure hope he gets one. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
Guys, the quarterback situation was announced earlier today, and Mason Rudolph, and I love that name, by the way. It sounds like he's a butler at the local really nice house in town or something.
The reindeer.
Mason, yeah, there you go, the Rudy the reindeer. He'll start, and Dobbs will relieve him, flip-flopping what happened last week. And, of course, that's going to lead everybody to, Rudolph's the number 2. No, I'm not reading into that yet. I think this is just an opportunity to give Rudolph a little bit more time with some of the number 1 type guys that he didn't have maybe last week. So not going to read a ton into it yet. So with that in mind, Chris, what do you need to see from Rudolph and Dobbs coming into this week?
Just building off of last performance, I think making those throws, keep your pocket poised, not taking unnecessary sacks, don't hold the ball too long, just, taking command of the offense and just being the best quarterback possible, watching the vocal leadership and seeing how they adjust to plays and how they come back from maybe a bad throw or an interception or a tipped drop ball or something, making sure that they're doing what they can as a leader. So I'd like to see that, as well as them just sling it. I mean, throw it downfield. It's preseason. Get chemistry with some guys, and just move forward. They both had good performances last week, and I want them to build upon that.
Ben, I'll just throw you the same question. I mean, what do you want to see from Dobbs and Rudolph this week that maybe they need to pick up on from last week?
I thought Rudolph played pretty well within himself last week.
Yeah.
I want to see how he plays with the other starters. I realize that Pouncey's probably not going to play, and a lot of the starters on offense aren't going to play. I don't know if James Conner's playing. I don't really know what to expect in terms of who will be out there and who won't in terms of receivers. I'd like to see how he interacts with a Moncrief, for example. He and Washington know each other so well that that's kind of cheating. I mean, it is.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I don't expect him to be able to throw that deep out that we keep talking about very well. No. That's just not his game. That's Ben. That's not Mason Rudolph. But as long as he plays well within his own strengths, that's great. I'd like to see Dobbs be a little more accurate than he was last week. We talked about the fact that he underthrew Washington on that long throw. Anticipate that a little bit better. He's got command of the offense. He's got command of the huddle. Obviously, there's nothing really to worry about there. He uses his feet well in the pocket. So does Rudolph. I echo what you said before. I think they're just kind of giving Rudolph a chance to play with the first and second team guys and see how he responds. There will be some people that are already going to be saying that Tomlin wants Rudolph to be the second team guy, and that's why this is happening. And if Rudolph eventually does get it, they're going to say it was rigged the whole time, blah, 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 blah. Fine, whatever. I just want to see both those guys play well.
Yeah,
Hodges, Hodges, I'm looking forward to watching Hodges again. The kid just loves football, and that's fun to watch.
I agree. I think, and I wrote about this week, I think the fact that you've got more genuine competition at a number of positions, perhaps a little greater than in years past, I think it's making each guy better. I think it's making the team better. We went into this thinking this was just going to be a battle for that number 2 spot. Well, look, Hodges is still a long shot. Let's not make any bones about it. He's still a long shot. But he's making it interesting at the very least. And if I'm Randy Fichtner, if I'm Mike Tomlin, I love that because now he's pushing Dobbs and Rudolph just a little bit more to be on top of their game, and I'm all for that. So, Chris, as far as the injuries going on right now, we haven't. Joe Hayden has been very quiet. I think Mike Tomlin said a contusion, which a bruise, a boo-boo. I mean, who knows what the heck these words are these days. Pouncey and DeCastro both seem to be dealing with some lingering issues.
Who has a contusion?
Joe Hayden has a contusion.
Where?
I believe it is the injury he suffered last week, the ankle foot injury that he left. Remember when he was carted off the field?
Yeah.
Apparently
I thought it was just a mild ankle sprain. If you've ever had a contusion, they're not fun. I've had a couple. It's basically you have a dent in the muscle, and it feels like a strain. Yeah. So every time you push on it, it's like somebody's jabbing a knife in there. Yeah. So that's not fun. Once fell on some rocks when I was surfing and had a contused glute, and I literally was bruised from about my waist almost down to my knee. It was pretty nasty.
I'm trying to figure out what's funnier here: the fact that you were surfing, or that you have a contused glute.
Yeah, I had a dent in my ass. Okay.
Holy cow, man! Yeah. I tell you what, I'd love to see that on the old injury reserve report.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Unbelievable. Oh geez, I don't. You know what? That's it. Show's over. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, so the Chiefs will come in. The Chiefs did play some of their starters last week. Chris, how much do you take if Patrick Mahomes plays, let's say, a quarter and a half with his other starters? That's
not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No, he played one series last week, and he was 4 for 4, 60 yards. Should have had a touchdown. Yeah, he's not going to play a ton.
Okay,
I don't think.
So he's already
outlandish.
He's already looking fresh. No, I agree with you. I just, Andy Reid's been around the way so long. He's probably got a pretty good system with what he does with these guys. But, I don't know. It's week 2.
Right, yeah.
There's not a ton of expectations on either side in terms of wins and losses. But let me, since we're talking a little offense here, if Connor doesn't play much, even if he does, what about Samuels? What about Benny Snell? And specifically, let's talk about Snell. What do you got to see from him this week? Because there were some little troubling things I thought I saw last week.
Yeah, he had a tough time getting going. He didn't look very fast. He actually looked slow. I need to see the physicality we saw in college. I mean, he's got to bring that. That's why he was drafted. You got to see that again. In terms of Jalen Samuels, I'm not worried about him. I'm not really concerned about him. I think that it's Benny Snell and down on the depth chart for the rest of the way here.
Right. And I tend to agree. I think that's pretty well solidified. Ben, if you want to address Snell, go ahead, but I'm also going to throw in the tight end situation. What you saw last week, what you hope to see this week. Go ahead.
I hope to see Snell just run with a little more power, less finesse. We talked about him running a sweep along the sideline and getting taken down by a corner. That's embarrassing when you're a running back. Yeah. Moreover, though, he's not really a guy who's going to make a lot of people miss. I mean, if I were him, I would have just taken that corner out and just kept going. I don't understand it. He's a much bigger and more physical player. I don't know why he didn't do it. The tight end situation, McDonald's not going to play. It doesn't sound like they're going to keep him wrapped in bubble wrap until the regular season starts. I'm sure he'll play week 3 with the starters for a little bit. So we'll get extensive looks at Xavier Grimble, Kevin Rader, and Zach Gentry. I expect that Rader will, in my estimation, still outplay Zach Gentry, and that the Steelers will do nothing to address that situation, that position, before the regular season starts. Let's all just hope that McDonald can stay healthy. We'll see. Yeah. I don't know. I really don't.
I think there's a lot of other people that are going to be surprised if they don't address it. But I'm getting that feeling. I'm getting that same feeling that you're getting, that they're not going to. And I don't think it's the right move, but that's why I'm sitting here in my basement and they're running the Steelers. So, Chris, what do you want to see from Chuks Okorafor this week after his performance last week?
Definitely more physicality. His sets were really wide. Honestly, he could literally improve every single aspect of his game to a tenfold at this point. Just more consistency, not letting up easy sacks, not letting up guys in the backfield so quickly. He's got some work to do, and I fully anticipate myself seeing him on offense a lot of the day. Is who I'm going to be focused on.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a lot of playing time. See if he can, get himself back on track. Ben, is Zach Banner, is he closing the gap between himself and Okorafor at all?
No.
No? Okay. I thought Banner played pretty well last week.
I thought he played very well last week.
Yeah.
And I think he's lighter than he has been in a long time. When the Steelers signed him, when they claimed him last year from Carolina, he weighed 360.
Yeah.
And now he's down to 324. The guy's in better shape. Apparently he's more flexible. He's playing better, but he's a right tackle only.
Yeah.
And that alone will keep him from dressing on game days if they only dress 3 tackles. So no, I do not expect him to overtake Okorafor.
Yeah.
Because he can play both sides. And we've seen Chuks play better. We've seen Chuks play much better. Like I said last week, we've seen him play better versus starters than he played, last week versus backups. So I think that was just kind of an aberration. I'm not really reading too much into it. For whatever reason, he wasn't there mentally. He had a really, really bad game. I agree with what Chris said. He can improve on every aspect of it.
Right.
Let's see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I'm hoping for the aberration part, and that it is going to be significantly better this week. And again, these are great opportunities for the Fred Johnsons of the world, who, at guard, a behemoth of a man at guard. He did a great job last week, and he suddenly put himself into a position where people are talking about him.
He looks like a road grader.
Oh my God, he's like a bigger version of Ramon Foster.
I was wondering if he could learn to snap. I was like, I wonder if he could maybe play center in a pinch.
That's an interesting question because Hassenauer did not look real good in my opinion.
Terrible.
I mean, very nice kid, but man, he looked like he reminded me of Greg Warren if he had to play center.
Yeah, okay.
You know how Greg Warren was, he's a long snapper. He's not real big and bulky. He just kind of skinny and white arms and, I don't know. In any case, Chris, I'm going to give you any parting shots here as we wind things down on the show here. Any final thoughts as we head into Chiefs weekend?
Yeah. 3 players that I really want to see against the Chiefs, and it's going to be 3 players who did not play last week: Deontay Johnson, Sutton Smith, and Brian Allen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and let's just talk Sutton Smith here for a minute because he was kind of a darling of the OTAs as they were moving him all over the place. They had him at H-back and stuff, and a lot of fans were excited, and he's been dinged up. Mike Tomlin was asked about him and said, yeah, he's falling behind. I'm not closing the door on him by any stretch of the imagination, but the old saying is you don't make the club if you're in the tub. And right now that's kind of where he's headed. So I'm with you. I would say those 3 guys, and he's definitely one I'm looking at too. Ben, any thoughts on that as you make your final thoughts for the evening?
No, I mean, we've all pretty much talked about, what we expect. I do want to see Johnson just because I'm excited to see him go out there and run routes.
Yeah.
My understanding is he's had a little bit of a problem with concentrating enough to catch the ball. I want to see him get past that, obviously,
for sure.
And see how he interacts with the quarterbacks and how that relationship works out, because that's super important. It's like a dance,
Yeah.
It's the quarterback and the receiver have got to know each other, and I want to see how well they get along in that regard. Really kind of looking forward to seeing Mark Barron have a better game this week than he had last. He had a few missed tackles last week. I don't think he played particularly well. So I guess we'll see what comes of that. He is going to be the dime linebacker this season, is my understanding. Vince is going to come off the field and he's going to be a dime backer. So I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think his fairly average performance was kind of not talked about because there was so much focus on Bush at linebacker, and talk about Ulysses Gilbert and the negative stuff we saw with Lane. Yeah, Barron's performance was very blah, but as we wrap things up here, definitely want to see. The Steelers do well. Again, I'm not real overly concerned with wins and losses. Don't forget, kids, the Detroit Lions once went 4-0 in the preseason and then lost 16 straight. So wins and losses don't mean doodly squat, and I just want to see continued improvement in areas and obviously just see how the team overall handles this situation going into this first game since the passing of Darryl Drake. And certainly we want to send our best to his family and Steelers organization. We know it's been a tough week, and I'm sure those guys are excited to play some football. So you've been listening to the Steel City Blitz Steelers podcast presented by 26shirts.com/Pittsburgh. And hey, go Steelers.
Ravens suck.